obviously a lot to play for Seattle, who desperately needs to win this one. So we're going to be watching with bated breath here. Chicago in a different position, but with so much to grow. I'm interested in talking about Caleb Williams, but I'm going to start, Patrick, with just kind of a check-in. What's the general vibe around this team? Are people disappointed? Were they expecting what's been happening? What do you feel?
Well, they've lost 9 in a row, so the vibe's not very good. The Bears haven't won a game since they beat the Jaguars on October 13th, and that was in London, England. So they haven't won a game stateside since October 6th. That is a long time. That's not what the Bears expected. The Bears thought that this would be the season in which they could compete and be playing these meaningful games in December. And it's just absolutely fallen apart. Caleb Williams is on his 3rd different offensive coordinator, 2nd different play caller, 2nd different head coach. Everything has crumbled here, and the Bears, I think, are just happy to play out the string. That is not what the good people of Chicago expected.
Hey, Patrick, kind of a personal question when it comes to Caleb. When he got drafted, I'm sitting around with my buddies, and I'm saying he's like the first of his kind, this generation that's in, like the way he thinks, the way his personality is. How has this new type of quarterback been accepted in the organization and the city, minus obviously the losses that you guys have had?
Yeah, he's got a little bit of an iconoclastic sort of thing going for him, and that is very different. He's also really kind of the first above-board, millionaire in college football, and that made when the Bears talked to him before the draft and when people talk to him about his business interests, that just makes him very different than a lot of these other guys. I mean, most players are really excited to sign their rookie contract pretty quickly because it means they've got some money in their pocket. Caleb Williams has had money in his pocket for years. So that whole thing is very different. I think it's gone over as well as could be expected in Chicago. I think that if they were winning games, it'd go over swimmingly. But, some of the little things like painting his nails, there's a generation of people in Chicago that think that's weird. I am not among them. I think that him being himself is a really good thing. And, he has done a good job of not he hasn't stepped in it at any point this year. He hasn't said anything that has turned into any sort of, hot topic here from a negative point of view. I think he's handling this terrible losing streak pretty well. If anything, I think the Bears have failed him and not the other way around.
You said that the Bears thought this would be a season where they could compete, and I think a lot of people thought that. I mean, we all saw, preseason betting pools and who would make the Super Bowl and who would win the division, and there was a lot of optimism about the Bears. Patrick, did you feel that they could compete? And then a follow-up question, why aren't they competing? What happened?
I've been around here long enough to not get caught up in this Super Bowl or playoff list, but I thought they'd be relevant, and I thought that they would be playing games at this time of year that would have playoff implications for themselves, and they haven't. Why have they gotten so bad? Boy, how long you got. Shane Waldron turned out to be the wrong offensive coordinator. They chose him, and veteran players almost immediately raised concerns with lots of different things with him. This defense that was actually pretty decent under Matt Eberflus got really bad once they decided to fire Eberflus. And then you've got the end-of-game situations. They give up the Hail Mary, of course, in suburban Washington, D.C. They haven't won a game since. They get a field goal blocked against the rival Packers. They lose in overtime to the Vikings. And then on Thanksgiving, everybody's watching the game in which Matt Eberflus has got a timeout in his pocket and decides not to use it. And the clock essentially expires while Caleb Williams checks the play to a deep shot because he knows that they've run out of time. Those are all pretty. Just one of those in a season would be a hot topic, and here we're at 4 or 5. So they haven't been able to finish games. Their defense wasn't what we thought it would be, and quite honestly, the offense hasn't been either. They're the worst first quarter team in the NFL. I believe they have scored twice. Yardage-wise, they've averaged half as many yards as the next closest team in the first quarter. So whatever they're doing to prepare offensively, whether it's Caleb or the play callers or what, it just ain't working. So everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. That's a long way of saying that.
Hey, Patrick, you mentioned different offensive coordinators, play callers, and head coaches for Caleb, and he's the most sacked quarterback in the game. 60 times he's been sacked. Don't worry, we're right behind him at the 3 spot. Geno's been sacked 45 times. But it ain't always the quarterback. I'm watching the film, and there are some rookie things that he does, hold on to the football maybe a bit longer than he should. But that offensive line seems like there's been some struggles there as well. How's that been? Has there been a shuffling going on? Because as you might know, over here in Seattle, we've had some of the same issues with the O-line.
Yeah, there's been injuries. The game tonight, starting left tackle Braxton Jones is going to be out. Tevin Jenkins, the starting guard, is going to be out. So that hasn't really helped. Ryan Bates, the guy they thought would be their starting center, really was never healthy, and they've had to play Coleman Shelton there all year. Nate Davis was the guy making $30 million over 3 years, and the Bears just flat out cut him in the middle of the season. Yeah, they thought that they had a decent line with really good depth. And as it turns out, neither of those things was true. Now, some of it, like you said, some of it's Caleb's fault, and some of it is stuff Caleb's got to learn from. And also that sacks number, as horrible as it is, it does mean one thing. It means that Caleb's playing every snap. I mean, he has started every game. He hasn't missed any time because of injury. And, that's important, I guess, big picture, to get this Rolodex of information in his head for him to be able to take off in year 2 and year 3. But, yeah, the offensive line has been one of the main disappointments around here.
A lot of Seattle connections when it comes to Chicago. Obviously, you've got Shane Waldron who went there, and we were talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba's response to his hiring here before the season started. And there's also obviously the connection now with Pete Carroll reportedly being interested in a job there. Patrick, what do you make of that report from Adam Schefter?
I think if Pete's interested in getting back into football, and you look at the 3 jobs that are open, I mean, he's got experience with one of those teams, and he might not want to go back to it. So I think that would leave the Bears and the Saints. I think the Bears are going to look at an offensive mind to pair with Caleb. I think they want somebody who can grow with him. Ben Johnson, to me, is the obvious number one. It's as much a matter of whether the Bears can sell Ben Johnson on what they're doing as it is the other way around. Now, I used to cover Pac-12 football back when Pete was there. I respect the heck out of Pete, and I think Pete is one of the great football coaches walking the earth. So if he wants to talk to the Bears, I think the Bears would be wise to talk to him. But, you need a plan as to who's going to come in and be your offensive guy. And then you need to answer the question that Matt Eberflus never could is, if it doesn't work out, or if somebody comes and takes your offensive coordinator because you're doing well, then what do you do? Matt Eberflus, hired Luke Getsy. He lasted 2 years. They fired him. Then they started this, 11-person search for an offensive coordinator this offseason, and they settled on Shane Waldron, and he couldn't make it into November. Mm-hmm. So I think the Bears are going to look at all of that as yet another reason to focus on an offensive play caller as the head coach.
All right, Patrick, I'm going to stop beating up on the Bears, man. I feel like everything's been negative so far, right? And you got to find some positive.
I'm used to it. I'm used to it. Don't worry about it at all.
But there is some positive, too. I try to tell our fan base the same thing, like, yes, we're losing some ball games, but they're moving in the right direction. Is there something that you feel like Caleb is doing well, or that this organization is doing well? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
I'm not selling my Caleb Williams stock. I think that at the end of maybe their 3rd season, I think we will look at the rookie class from this year, and I think Caleb will be the best among them. And I realize that that's a bold statement given what Jaden Daniels is doing, given what Bo Nix has been able to do. Michael Penix is just getting started, but he looks pretty good. I think Caleb has kind of everything you need to be one of the really good quarterbacks in the league. So that is number one, and that is number one with a bullet. Everything else, I think, is secondary. But you look at the roster they have, they're still position players. DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, who you guys are really familiar with. I think Rome can be a really good NFL player. You've got Cole Kmet. Those are all guys that, are good players on a winning team if you get everything going in the right direction. And, on the defensive side, Jalen Johnson is one of the best cornerbacks in football. They have talent. They have Montez Sweat, who's having a bad season, but, I'd go to war with him any day. I mean, they have really good players at a couple of pretty key positions. Whether they can, round out the offensive and defensive line in the draft, I think is going to be a big question. And remember, they have the Panthers' 2nd-round pick. So this is a team that might draft 3 times in the top, 45 of the draft this year. And if you add that talent to the talent that you've got on your roster and under contract, I think there's a lot to look forward to here, and I think it's the reason why it's going to be a pretty attractive job for a lot of people.
I really appreciate you, Patrick, saying earlier, if anything, we were asking about Caleb Williams, if anything, the organization seems to have failed him. I think it's so easy to look at the players who are in the spotlight, so quarterbacks, maybe young stars, right? Here, people look at Rome Odunze, and you say, oh, they don't have the players, they don't have the personnel. But it sounds like what you're saying is, this organization had clear coaching issues. They had preparation issues. They couldn't respond. They couldn't adapt. And that's not always on the shoulders of players, particularly rookies and, second-year players and third-year players. Do you see then perhaps the most impactful thing for this team being who they hire to replace that head coach job?
Absolutely, yes. And they're going to need somebody who, like I said, can be paired with Caleb and can put together an offensive game plan that makes a ton of sense. I think if you look around the NFC North here, Kevin O'Connell is somebody that I don't think was anybody's first choice, when the Vikings hired him a couple of years ago. And, boy, he has shown the value of having somebody that can put together a good offense. And I think Caleb Williams is a better quarterback than the one that Kevin O'Connell's got a chance to work with this year in terms of raw talent. So, yeah, I think that's it. And to your point, let's look back at that Lions game on Thanksgiving. Caleb changes the play at the line of scrimmage because the clock is running out. Maybe that wasn't maybe that wasn't a smart decision, but he's got a coach on the sideline who should know better.
Yeah.
And Caleb is a rookie. I think expecting a rookie to know better is foolish. I think that's why you have, head coaches and position coaches and adults in the room. And I think that's a perfect snapshot of what's gone wrong this season. You have a quarterback that's trying to do the right thing, and when he doesn't, or when it's confusing, they didn't have a coaching staff smart enough to bail them out.
How do you see this matchup going? I think people assume the Seahawks should win this game, but Patrick, I watch a lot of film and I look at matchups, and I think there are some things that Chicago does offensively that can give this defense some fits. How do you see this thing ending up?
Here's my unscientific take on this game. The wrong team wins on Thursdays a lot. And I think that's part of it.
You're not wrong.
Because of rest issues, obviously. The Seahawks are used to it, but the Seahawks have to travel a really long way to play this game, and the Bears can wake up and go there. I think they have a chance. I picked the Seahawks to win by a field goal because, like you said, they have something to play for, and the Bears don't. But, the Bears, I think, have as much of a chance here as they've had in the last month. Somebody asked me, I want to say after Matt Eberflus was fired right after that Thanksgiving game, if I thought the Bears would go the rest of the season without winning. And I said, even in the moment, I said, if they're going to win a game, it's probably going to be that Thursday game against Seattle. So I still don't think they're going to get there, but I think it's going to be more competitive than people think. And I'll tell you this, after the two NFL games we watched yesterday, if there's a game that's competitive in the fourth quarter, that'd be an upgrade over what we watched.
We were just saying that this morning. It's like, God, on paper, these Christmas Day matchups were so fun, but maybe Thursday night's going to be the close one. Very related question to bump here for you, Patrick, is you said, hey, if there was going to be a game, it would be this Seattle team, that just because weird things can happen in prime time, maybe it ends up being, the team struggling wins. However, is there something that Chicago does well where when Bump and I are in here on Friday, and let's say the defense gives up some deep bombs, or let's say the defensive line can't quite get to Williams, or whatever it is there something they do well that we can go, well, listen, we talked with Patrick Finley, and he said ignore the 9 losses, that Chicago's been pretty okay in this area.
Well, they've lost 9 in a row, so there's not a ton that they do well, but I think DJ Moore with the ball in his hands is as dangerous as any aspect of this game, and the Bears have been creative in recent weeks in getting him the ball, both in the backfield and on screens and on kind of more standard stuff. And also Rome Odunze, on fourth downs and on third downs, they tend to go to him. And there was a play the other day where it was 4th and 1, and he got 30 yards just on a jump ball that they gave him. I would look out for Rome in critical situations. I'd look out for DJ with yards after catch. And if the Bears can get both of those things going and have a running game that's just above average for the first time in a while, I think offensively they have a chance to put up some points.
He covers the Bears and the NFL for the Chicago Sun-Times. It's Patrick Finley, kind enough to join us for a preview ahead of this Thursday night matchup. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, guys.